already. Just, start
Yeah.
it off. So
It might be fun to keep some of this in there, to be honest, considering it's the pilot episode.
yeah,
So-
yeah. That's sometimes that's what I'll do is I'll actually hit record before, because there's actually like juicy stuff before you even start.
Yeah.
So you could do that,
Yeah.
and because you'll hear like Joe Rogan kind of having like a rolling start,
Yeah. Yeah.
but sometimes they were actually talking before.
Yeah.
And so he'll say like, oh, hey, everybody, welcome, blah, blah, blah. And then he'll say like, oh, say what you were just saying before we started recording.
Yeah. You see that, like, you can hear them kind of talking and it'll roll in the, like, Joe Rogan by day or whatever the thing is, podcast by night.
And then the big thing is like, make sure you're actually recording. Like I check, so it's the lights and, and I always make sure I have fresh batteries. It depends. Like I normally don't do more than 3 podcasts until I change the batteries. And those are like 1.5 hour long podcasts, sometimes 2. But even if the battery shows that it's full, I'll just replace it.
Yeah, it'd be like the worst thing in the world to have like some awesome conversation. Like
it's happened, man. Like it happened where I had my camera recording, and then we had an amazing podcast. Luckily I had the audio, but someone had text the phone and it went off of recording for the video.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, put it on airplane mode next time. So it's like, I'm happy I could share this with you, because it's like you don't have to make the same mistakes, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, but that's just part of anything. You just learn and you just, okay, you suck it up and you move forward.
Yeah.
And luckily, like Dr. Scott Scher, for example, when that happened, he was like, oh, no problem, Tony. Like, and we could always do another one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see how this goes anyway. I think I'm going to do the American introduction. I had so much fun this morning, like sending that through on Telegram. The Causeway Living Podcast with me, your host, Scott Riley.
I was laughing, man. I was like, holy crap, that's pretty good. I mean, it's like ultra cheesy because that's what they do. Like some of them are all like, I wonder if they use the same guy or they, but it's cool if people are doing. I just kind of like more creativity, because the best part of what you did was it was funny, especially when you started to say my name, Tony Garbanzo Beans. But before that, like you started laughing, so it sounded like a professional podcast with like that American voice. And then you started laughing, and then you said my name, like Garbanzo Bean Floreal, right? and like to me that was like actually a pretty funny intro that would be unique.
Yeah, it's funny, like those things are like lightning in a bottle moments. You just like, it's so impossible to capture that, like it just happens once.
Exactly. And that's the best part is, and again, why something's weird, there's some kind of phenomenon happens when the camera turns on and the audio is recording, and it's like a performance. And for me, something like you said, these lightning bottle moments happen only when there's some kind of performance happening that you just can't plan or script. And I don't know if it's like a personality amplification that occurs, and then it's funny, but you don't think about it, it just happens.
I don't know, it's like just creating the space for it to happen, I think, is like all you can really do.
That's right. And I get certain sets are conducive to creating these environments, comedy sets. Always see like brick on a wall.
Oh yeah, right.
It's interesting, right? Or again, Joe Rogan's show has brick on a wall because he's a comic. So I guess he's trying to create that kind of vibe that's also funny. But other people have like a more clinical looking set, or even a hipsterish looking set. So it's all interesting, man. Again, I'm always fascinated with these kind of environments that you build, and then the creativity just kind of flows out, and those lightning bottle moments happen.
Yeah, for sure. Well, at this point, I think we're just gonna keep this bit in the podcast because this has been good so far.
I like it, man. Yeah, the rolling start.
Yeah. So I should probably explain to anyone listening to this that this is the pilot episode of the Causeway Living Podcast. Sounds better in my own accent, maybe. And
you do have a cool accent, even though it's not an accent wherever you're from, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, as far as Northern Irish accents go, mine's pretty soft.
It is pretty soft, yeah.
Don't know why that is. My dad's English, though sometimes refrain from saying that here. People hold it against you. But yeah, and then here is really interesting. You can have an accent from Bangor, where we're at, and travel 12 miles down the road, and they sound like this from Belfast. Just completely different.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, certain our friends have heavy accents just not that far from where you are.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully everyone listening in can understand me. They can definitely understand you with a nice American accent.
Yeah.
And I should really name check you, really. Tony Floreal, my first guest for the pilot episode of the Causeway Living Podcast.
What an honor, bro.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have had anyone else, really. I mean, this is the perfect start for the podcast. This is kind of where Causeway Living started. How many years ago now? Would it be 4 years?
Probably 4, right?
Yeah. I think it might be fun to tell a bit of that story on the podcast. I think it might be fun to just share the story about how a guy who I met in San Diego or near San Diego ended up coming to live here in Bangor, Northern Ireland, 4 years down the line.
Yep.
And it's not even the weirdest place that you've lived.
It's pretty nice, actually. I mean, that's why I'm here. But yeah, it's a crazy story, right? And I mean, we'll definitely get into it. And I'm gonna get married soon. And,
yeah.
Thanks to a beautiful woman I met at your event. But I thought it was funny that was a full circle moment. Where you're like, yeah, well, because of I think it was definitely one of your friends that told you about me, I believe, and we were in the Wim Hof Iceman group, and you were down in San Diego and reached out to me, and and then through meeting, you ended up starting Causeway Living through a group that I co-founded called Tribe Shift, and then from there you started your sort of dash and splash event. And it was every Sunday, without missing a week for how many weeks total in a row?
129 in a row.
Yeah. And then, of course, the world just went into meltdown with the virus situation. But it was just from that event that I met my future wife, Judith Crozier. And so, I already had an affinity for Ireland, but just growing up in a Catholic school and, surrounded with Irish and just fascinated. All my friends were Irish. So just growing up, it was just something that it was a part of my life. And then meeting you, it just felt like an instant connection, like a soul connection. We had our Guinness floats, which is probably, what would you say? That's not something that is traditional in Ireland. And would it be offensive to Irish people to put a coffee ice cream into an Irish float?
I don't know. It was pretty delicious, to be honest.
It was so good, right? And honestly, it hasn't hit the mark since. We try to recreate it, and it's just not the same. So we're gonna have to go back to San Diego at the La Costa Resort and Spa and order it if they still have it. But yeah, long story short, I met my future soon-to-be wife, Judith, at your event, and just kept coming back before I even met her, just to hang out with you and then all our group of friends that I introduced you to. You know, we're just kind of like that, like rat pack in a way.
Yeah, it's been awesome to have like yourself and our mutual friends from different countries come to Northern Ireland, and like for me to see it through your eyes and like through the eyes of foreign people, and it's given me a new appreciation for the place as well. It was even to the point where whenever I started Causeway Living, like I wanted there to be some connection to Northern Ireland in the name of it, but I didn't want to call it something like something wellness NI or Northern Ireland. The Causeway, you know, Giants Causeway is probably one of the most famous natural formations here. So yeah, it like gave me a connection to Northern Ireland in the name of what I was doing. And yeah, it's been awesome to take you guys up to the Giants Causeway as well. We have some nice pictures there. That's a special
It's a very special place, magical, and I mean, just beautiful, stunning that these hexagonal formations are natural, you know, and then just hearing the mythical story around it, you know, the actual giant that like laid these things out, right? And very few places in the world have these formations.
Yeah.
I guess it's volcanic, right? Because it's in Iceland. It's maybe in Scotland as well, or...
That's right. Yeah, it's a volcanic thing. There's like a part of the reason where the whole giant myth came from around the Giants Causeway is I wonder if it's worth going into a little short rendition of the story. Probably most people listening to this are from Northern Ireland, but for the sake of anyone who isn't and doesn't know the legend of Finn Mccool, he was an Irish giant, and I hope I get this right now. I know my own history.
You're pretty good with history, though.
Well, history's maybe a bit of a stretch when you're talking about giants. Maybe more legend, myth.
Yeah.
He was an Irish giant who wanted to pick a fight with the giant who lived over in Scotland. He could see across over to Scotland, and he thought, I'm going to pick a fight with this guy because that's what giants do.
An Irish giant.
Especially, right? He's like some sort of Conor McGregor type guy. Yeah. And he built the pathway, the causeway, across to Scotland with the big hexagonal pillars. And he got over there, but whenever he got over, he realized that the giant on Scotland was actually way bigger than him, but he couldn't tell because of the distance that he was looking so far away. So he was like, oh shit. And then
a bigger giant.
Yeah. He like legged it back to Ireland and hid in his house. And he ran back home, and he explained to his wife, he was like, listen, I'm really fucked up here. I've gone and picked a fight with this giant. He's way bigger than me. I don't know what to do. And of course, the woman knows best, and she tells him to get in the baby's crib. And she's like puts like a baby's bib on him and like the little baby's bonnet or hat. And then whenever the Scottish giant like runs over and like bursts through the door and goes, where's Finn? I'm here to fight that motherfucker. Should actually probably say this this podcast is going to be X-rated language, so if you're offended by that, now's a good...
Oh, even more fun, man.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
So yeah, the Scottish giant bursts through the door and he's looking for Finn, and the wife's like, oh, I don't know where he's ended up. He said he was going to go off to fight some guy, but you can come in here and sit down. I'm just looking after the baby. And then the Scottish giant looks at Finn in the crib, and he's like, oh shit, if that's the baby, like how big is the actual giant? So then he ran back to Scotland, destroyed the causeway, and then the remaining bits left on Ireland, and then there's like a little hexagonal pillars over in Scotland. And I really hope that I've got that right, and I don't get a bunch of people saying, you messed the story up.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't sure because it was like, okay, so if there was a bigger guy over in Scotland, it seemed like that would have been a Scottish story, you know? But then the ending made it, it's like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense, you know? Because I wouldn't think like an Irish story would be like, oh, smaller giant, you know?
Yeah, he was the smarter well, his wife actually was the smarter giantess, I suppose.
That's cool though. Yeah, I mean, just to be there to me is very showcases the beauty of Northern Ireland and also just the whole island of Ireland. So it's I can't wait to go back, you know. I mean, it's usually packed with people, but we've had good times there, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Showing different people from different countries, like something that's really rare to hear, but like other places that we've been as well, like in the Mourne Mountains, like that's a really special place to me. It's somewhere you've been at least a couple of times with me, and diving
beautiful
into rock pools and
yeah, just a hike to the wall up there, you know, that's like got a whole story to it as well, I'm sure.
yeah, like interestingly, it's like a whole lot newer, obviously, than the Giants Causeway is probably like millions of years old, I guess. But I'm not sure what year the Mourne Wall was built. But again, this is one of those things I really hope I've got right. But the Mourne Wall, it like demarcates or marks out the water board land. So like part of the mountains are owned by the water board, and to mark out their lands, they built this wall over all the top of the mountains there. But the truth of it is, like, I mean, they don't really need a wall over the top of mountains to mark out their land. And seemingly it was like built at a time where there was like just no jobs for people, and they decided like, let's make them build a pointless wall across the top.
Yeah. I mean, the idea to me, I would have thought like, okay, you're trying to stop invaders from going over, or, you know, I mean, it has this kind of like Great Wall of China bit where it's like, I mean, it's not that long, obviously, but you know, you see it up there and you go, okay, that seems like it has some sort of way of preventing people from going over, but you know, just that like give people jobs and build this thing, and it's way up there and it's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. It's an amazing thing. I think it's over like 20 miles long. Like,
oh, is it that long?
Pretty serious thing.
Wow.
Again, really hope I've got my facts right. Should really check these things out before I start running my mouth on the podcast.
Yeah, well, I mean, how many tourist guys actually like get it pretty right? I mean, it's like sometimes they make it more fun and interesting, you know.
Yeah, and like I figure sometimes if you say anything with enough confidence, people will be like, "Yeah, of course."
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I didn't know that bit. Yeah, that doesn't. Okay, yeah, you fact check that.
Yeah, the Mourne Wall was to stop Norse invaders from taking the mountains, and then the Giants came. But yeah, no, it's been really fun to like showcase this place, not just with my friends, but like I try to do that a bit with Causeway Living as well. You know, a lot of it is around the Mournes where I take the pictures, but also around, you know, where I live and we live in North Down, near Belfast and Bangor and that part of the coast. It's stunning here as well.
It's so stunning, and it's just peaceful to me. I mean, I come from a place where there's a lot of like urban density and way more people, way more noise, so it's just really soothing on just, I would say, my nervous system, like being here. And sometimes when there's too many people, there's that kind of lack of intimacy, like connection with like your neighbors. And I don't know if it's because I'm like foreign here and people are just generally like welcoming or warm, but like even when I didn't even know you, like I came to Ireland just to get a pint of Guinness, right? Like that's a funny story.
You have to share that story.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was living in Vancouver, Canada at the time, married, and went down to visit my family in San Francisco, and been fortunate to have like flight benefits through a family member, and you know, one of the things when you're traveling on an airplane, you're only allowed a seat on the plane if there's room, so they let all the like paid ticket buyers on first, and then of course they let any employee of that airline actually like on the airplane, and then it goes by seniority. So I couldn't get back to Vancouver from San Francisco, and nor did I want to like pay for like a ticket. It was when you buy a ticket sometimes last minute, it's like really expensive. So I just said, okay, well, what's another way I can get back to Vancouver? And decided, well, I looked on the flight listings and decided, oh, wow, I can go all the way to New York. Well, since I'm in New York and I always wanted to go to Ireland, well, I'll just go to Ireland and have a pint of Guinness. hang out at the like Temple Bar and in Dublin and go see like St. Patrick's Cathedral and go see, you know, St. Valentine's like burial place and then I hopped on the plane like the next morning and flew to New York and then flew to Vancouver and got home. So, you know, it was quite a trip. And I mean, you know, what was cool is that I actually saw what I call my Guam mom when I spent time living in Guam for 18 months. So she was actually working the desk in Newark and got me onto the plane to Dublin, Ireland. And she's like, Tony, why are you going to Dublin, Ireland for? And I'm like, I'm going to go drink a Guinness, you know? I was like, I've always loved Guinness and I want to drink it from the source. She's like, really? You're going all the way to Ireland just to drink a Guinness? I was like, yep. So yeah, it's actually on video. One of my early like vlogs on YouTube with Tony, Tone, Floreal, Floreal. And you'll see that video where I went to Ireland just for a beer.
That's so cool. Like, I would highly encourage anyone to go and follow Tony. Like, Tony is well known for that kind of thing, like just popping up at random places in the world. And, you know, you mentioned Guam and like Hawaii and randomly turning up in Amsterdam for the Wim Hof film fundraiser. That's quite a good story as well, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, so that goes back to, you know, when you founded Causeway Living, you were doing the Wim Hof method. Is kind of how we met through a mutual, well, it was your friend. And actually, David Gilmore, right? He's reached out recently, and but yeah, we got linked up through the Wim Hof method, and you know the crazy Iceman set all this Guinness Book of World Records, and it's helped people with their health and recovery from like even autoimmune incurable conditions, you know. And so anyways, yeah, just ended up doing the Wim Hof method for like 10 weeks, his 10-week course at the time. I'd seen his documentary on Vice, and then was watching Joe Rogan podcast with Dr. Mark Gordon and Andrew Marr, ex-Special Force Green Beret who had traumatic brain injury and PTSD, and through Dr. Gordon was able to heal his brain condition. And he had mentioned that one of his therapies he did was doing the Wim Hof method. So when I heard that, I was like, wow, that's interesting, because I grew up in San Francisco surfing in cold water. And I remember this sort of high I would get after surfing, where like you have surfer munchies where you would eat food and it would taste better, right? It's kind of like smoking weed, the same thing, right? Just stimulates your appetite, and food tastes better, like music sounds better, like everything's just enhanced. And you know, I just felt like myself, like coming out of the water, like monkey mind was shut off. Judy calls it like the jungle in your mind is, it's like quiet. And so it just, everything came together when I heard Andrew talking about that on Joe Rogan's podcast. And then I just decided to buy the 10-week course. And I knew that I needed to have some form of accountability. So I already had my Instagram account. I was already traveling the world and doing vlogs at different places I was at. And so I announced that I was doing the Wim Hof. And this was the time when they had that sort of fundraiser for, I think it was, I want to say Parkinson's or some sort of like, I'm not sure what it was, but it was a fundraiser where they were doing the ice bucket challenge.
ALS, I think.
ALS, exactly. And so, you know, all these famous people were dumping ice on themselves. And so it was kind of like a perfect timing. And so I basically documented every day of the 70 days of that 10-week course. And my goal was actually, because I have a background in science and I understand the skeptic mind, but it was like trying to prove Wim wrong. And, you know, probably about halfway through, I like sent a tweet to Wim, and I was so surprised that he responded back. But I was saying, like, I can't believe that I would say this, but taking a hot shower feels completely unnatural. So it's like my body was adapting to the cold shower. And then he wrote back, like, just simply, like, spot on. And I was like, whoa, the Iceman responded back. And so that was part of what I posted. And like, you guys, more people were just like, wow, this is intriguing, tell me more. Like, I can't believe, like, what's this ice thing, like, tell me more. And then long story short was ended up part of the time living in Hawaii, which is like not the place to actually do the Wim Hof method, but you know, I somehow got into the Wim Hof group and then connected with the film director who was planning on creating the Wim Hof documentary, and that was Manelli. And he and I connected, and we were chatting. He goes, like, where are you, like, calling from? Like, where are you? And I was like, Hawaii. He's like, really? You're in Hawaii? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, will you be our film ambassador when we release the film? And I was like, well, sure. What do I got to do? And he's like, just have a red carpet event, like, host a film. I was like, I'd love to do that, like, host it. And then he said, oh, by the way, we're having the film gala fundraiser this weekend in Amsterdam. And he's like, you're welcome. He's like, I don't know if you're gonna be able to make. I was like, I'm there, right? Because he's like, really? Like, he didn't know I had flight benefits, right? Yeah. And so essentially he wrote back saying, like, hey, I'm not sure if it's gonna happen completely, but don't book your ticket. And I said, oh, I already booked it, man. I'm gonna come anyways. Yeah. Inside I felt like I was gonna meet Wim, you know. And then because I think Wim replied to me another time on Twitter, and then I flew out to see Manelli Alamo, picked me up. And when he picked me up from the airport, he says, hey, by the way, I talked to Wim about you, and he says he wants you to come stay at his place. So rad. And I was basically, I think I only had 5 more days of the 70-day challenge. And I ended up meeting Wim and staying at his house. And we were going to do the ice bath together. But there were so many people coming in, as you know, like the film crew and guest. And so I was like, yeah, even though I met the Iceman, I'm staying at his house, I still have to complete his program. Right? And it was so easy just to, like, chill out. And so the next morning, like, Wim wasn't around. Like, I thought we were gonna do the ice bath together, but he's so busy with all these other commitments. So I just started doing it in his house, like doing the heavy breathing. And then I went out into the pool by myself and did the ice, or the cold part. And then as I was coming back in the house, Wim comes running out of the house. Tony, man, hey, can I take a picture with you, man? And I was like, you want to take a picture with me? And he's like, yeah, let's take a picture. Hey, Manelli, take a photo of us, right? And so there's the picture of us, and I'm like, you know, like chilly, like cold, and you know, my skin's like all fleshed, and I'm taking a picture with the Iceman and his dog, and you know, it's just like a highlight for me. And so that was kind of how it all happened. And you know, obviously the story continues because we end up meeting, you and I, and so it was pretty cool.
It's like such a wild adventure, like how you end up at Wim's house completely randomly. And ultimately, if it wasn't for Wim, I wouldn't know, like, any of my best friends now, which is like insane, what he's done for people, not only in, like, discovering how beneficial the cold is and breath work, but in just bringing people together, like being someone who is willing to be his most authentic self and shine that out into the world and be like a lighthouse for other weirdos like to come together. Like that was a big inspiration for me in starting Causeway Living, and like hey, I'm just this weird guy who runs down the coast and jumps in the sea and does this other stuff. And then to a much smaller extent at this stage, like through things like Dash and Splash, it drew in the other weirdos as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty wild to see, when I met you, you've grown. Basically, I'm saying you've grown so much since that time, like incredibly, like just to know what's possible in someone's personal growth and transformation. But you were just kind of like timid. There was, if I were to give you like a color, there was like a grayness about you, and like maybe sadness or something. And I think it kind of shows in that photo that we took together, right? I'm wearing my like iconic like Iceman glasses, and that was kind of like my trademark at the time. But just from meeting, and then not even like a few months later, we ended up all staying in a house that we call Assholes Castle in Anaheim. And, we put together like kind of the precursor to Magic Flow Bus, which like all these amazing people from around the world with something to teach others the things that we wish we were taught when we were in school, and things from, like the Wim Hof method and breathing and meditation, and even like how to like shoot a bow, how to start a fire, how to, survive in the wilderness, forage for food. So essentially, to see you at that event giving your first speech, and I remember like you're saying like I don't know why I'm here, because these are like ex Special Force Green Beret. These are people that led people up a snowy mountain in like just their shorts. Just a ballroom dancer, like international like winner, in a contest. And so there was like medical doctors, right? And I just remember like your first speech, and then soon after, like Causeway Living was created, like through you being humble enough to say like, hey, I want to create a business. Like these are the ideas and names that I'm looking at. And then it formed, and then you went back home, you had like a website. Then next thing you know, you started Dash and Splash. And then next thing you know, like it just created this sort of revolution of like cold swimming, which there were pockets of swim clubs around Ireland, but somehow you just created this like movement. And to see you stand in front of people and then see how shy you were on your first speech, and then to see this thing happen for like over 120 something Sundays in a row, and like it built this like huge summer solstice where there was like a couple hundred people there, and then you're featured in the news and the media, and it was so amazing to watch your growth, and then your story, and then like share that, and the impact that it's had on people. And then you have a business where you like take people on tours, you teach them breath work, you teach them lifestyle skills, better eating, better sleep. So it's so beautiful to see that.
Oh man, I really appreciate that. Like, I think a lot of people see my journey as like the before and after picture from my rock bottom point, the really overweight guy, to the picture just before the conference that we did, the thing that was leading up to Magic Flow Bus, which we should talk about in a minute in more detail. But they see that as the big transformation, because there's the big weight loss, and then I wasn't suffering the symptoms from the rheumatoid arthritis anymore. But it's really good actually to have your point of view and witnessing the last 4 years, so the continuation on from the weight loss and the overcoming chronic illness thing, because there's as much, if not more, growth for me, I think, like in that space of time, going from like a really shy, quiet person who just didn't really feel like he totally belonged, to where I'm at now, which I definitely don't want to give the impression that I've got life all figured out or anything, but certainly a lot happier. and living my purpose to help other people achieve the same in their own growth, and made even more special doing it with other cool people who are on the same message and living the same path. And yeah, it kind of brings us nicely back around to Magic Flow Bus, which is something that I don't know if Northern Ireland knows how lucky it was that like you put this together last summer. No, actually, no, it was last September.
Yeah, a year ago, almost. Yeah,
a year ago. You brought together people from so many different countries, actually, like all around the world, to an event in Crawfordsburn that you kind of explained there, like teaching the skills that we would have loved to have learned as kids, but we had Chuck and Jordana and family come over from the United States. We had Thor come from Iceland. We had Nemo's from the US as well. Casper and Anna came from the Netherlands and Germany, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
We had Patrick McKeown of the Oxygen Advantage fame come up from Galway. And like, yeah, just because you put out the call and brought together all these awesome people in Crawfordsburn, like an incredible thing that I really hope that, who knows, with the way the world is at the moment, at the time of recording this, social distancing is a thing. Hopefully, if you're listening to this in however many months' time, we can all look back on that and laugh and think, oh, you know, that silly thing had passed. But yeah, who knows? I just really hope that it's possible to do another Magic Flow Bus in the near future, bringing amazing people from around the world again. And yeah, it's just incredible to see what you've done with that. And it wasn't just in Northern Ireland, you'd done them across in America as well, right?
Yeah, I did them in San Francisco and Santa Cruz, California, mainly. And then yeah, I had that first international one here in Ireland, and yeah, it was such a beautiful feeling to see that many people from multiple countries come so far and wide to this little place in Ireland. And yeah, I mean, it's such a family vibe, you know, because, you know, I had kids there and as well. And it was just, again, the whole point is that life can be magical. I think my life was testament to it. I've definitely gone through a lot of rock bottoms and near-death experiences. So, you know, I feel I have a greater appreciation for life. And just like you were saying, an earlier conversation we had with a friend that, you know, essentially you don't want to have like regrets at your deathbed, you know, not knowing that, or just thinking like, you know, I could have tried this method to help with my rheumatoid arthritis, or, you know, whatever it is. So again, to provide a space that was like the precursor of Magic Flow Bus, where you got to stand in front of, you know, like successful people in your mind who are just regular human beings that no one there had any kind of ego, or everybody was encouraging. So I just know that so many people would blossom in an environment like that. And so that's the whole point of it. So essentially there are things that I wish we were taught in school, and how funny we're in this time of COVID, and, you know, who knows what's going to happen, but I'm kind of happy that I have some skills that I know that could help us survive, like, you know, growing our own food, and like we were saying earlier, like build a fire, build shelter. So again, like, or even just something as simple as like even public speaking, right? Just to be able to stand up there and talk to people and get used to that. So the thing that I loved about like the Wim Hof stuff that kind of inspired all this as well was just exposure therapy and like understanding like dosage and intensity, and it was like, wow, like how come they didn't teach us this in school, right? They just kind of like throw you into with the other dogs, you know, and like may the best win, and there's competition, and which I actually love. But at that time, being timid and shy, I felt like when I saw you, I felt like I saw like my old self, you know, and that I think we could just guide each other people who are, you know, not as where we're at, but we can kind of uplift them. So again, that's like the whole point of Magic Flow Bus, and hopefully we'll get to do something like that again soon, even if it's on a smaller scale. I learned a lot, like just business wise, and learning how to like put an event on, and it's definitely not like traditional in terms of my approach, but I've never been like one that followed tradition. It just kind of like followed my own like instincts. And yeah, I would just like I said, I couldn't script a lot of things that happened. It was just literally like magic in the way and everything unfolded, and the lessons I've learned, and even being around you, Scott, I feel like I learned just as much, and I'm just as inspired by you and your growth that it fuels me, you know? And that's just kind of what I see is like sometimes people will like grow like faster and like sort of like outclass a master, so to speak, right? And so there's things and aspects about you that I like inspired to like get better, you know, because life happens and sometimes you like fall off the wagon. And I never liked the idea of like some kind of mastered or some level. It's just like sometimes you are in a rut, and you just there's people around you that can help you like climb out of it, you know. So yeah, it's beautiful.
It's like a really good friendship, I think, is exactly like that, you know, you can lift each other up in different moments. And yeah, like from back in the day whenever we met first in San Diego, like I remember you mentioned me mentioning that I felt like I didn't know why I was there in Anaheim whenever we did the pre-Magic Flow Bus event. And I remember the feeling was something like I just didn't have belief, and I couldn't understand why all these awesome people would want me there. And whether it was seeing something in me that yourself and others had like lived through already, like now I get that in doing my own workshops, that it's like one of the most special things actually is like people coming along to workshops, and then like at some point or maybe towards the end, and it's humbling, but people will turn around and say like, thanks so much for sharing your story, or thanks so much for believing in me. Because whenever you don't have belief in yourself, like to be able to borrow belief from other people who've done it before and they've like been at a low place but known that it's doable is totally life changing. So to be able to share that like back and forward as a friendship, or in the role as a teacher, say if you're like teaching something at Magic Flow Bus, or if I'm doing something in my workshop, it's always reciprocated in some form, because I always learn, I'm sure, as much as I ever teach in those workshops from the people who are brave enough to like open up and speak honestly. And yeah, for anyone who's like listening to this and feeling like maybe low self-esteem or self-worth, because that's definitely where I've been in the past and still occasionally, like to this day, just know that like anything is possible. And if you don't have that belief in yourself, finding a community or somebody to believe in you who has been through something similar or has been at a similar place and grown through it, it can be totally life-changing. So very grateful that there's more and more people here on that path sharing that message. It's far from something I'm doing on my own. You know, yourself, Tony, in your own work, working with the echoscope on people, I know it's so much deeper than that. Purely the conversations you'll get into working with people. But then there's like other groups and communities like Stephen and Aga at Wildfoot. It's like something similar, or Gracie Barra, where you know, they're teaching jiu-jitsu, and there's like that whole idea of borrowed belief as well. But as I just mentioned, the machine, the echoscope,
the machine,
I think it'd be really interesting for people to learn a little bit more about that. And I feel like it's something that if somebody's listening to this podcast and are suffering from various like aches and pains, this is a thing of real value that there's nothing really like in Northern Ireland. There's nothing really like in many parts of the world. The people are very lucky that not just the machine is here, but an extremely skilled black belt practitioner is here to operate it. And
it's funny, I never thought of myself like that, but I definitely put in the years for sure.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. So it'd be really cool if you could explain a little bit about the machine and what it can do, and like the sort of people that it could help, and let people also know that, well, I'm letting people know that you're around and able to facilitate that. Yeah. So like 15 years ago, my background out of college was I got a degree in exercise science and kinesiology, study of movement and sports performance, health, wellness, etc. So, you know, I got involved with the, personal training side of things. I had a background in massage as well, and loved just strength and conditioning. So I figured if I wasn't gonna be a pro athlete, at least my dream was to train them. So right out of college, I fell in love, ended up in Guam. And then series of just being jaded over the years with just that field. There's a lot of, conceited and even just, it's very competitive, right? And sharky. So, you know, I always just been someone that had gravitated towards like healing with my own challenges growing up with, you know, being hearing impaired and having just horrible allergies, being overweight. So, you know, fortunately my mom was self-educated in the sense that like, what could she do to help relieve my suffering from all these things? And so as much as my sister and I didn't like it at the time, but she kind of set the foundation for health in terms of like packing better lunches for school, walking everywhere, carrying groceries. Like we didn't have much because she was a single parent. So we didn't have a car. We took the bus everywhere. So anyways, you know, when I was in Guam, I just hit this moment where I didn't want to be in that world anymore. I love sports. I love the industry. It's just, it wasn't the type of vibe that I thought would make it even better. So this kind of borderlines on like The Secret, but essentially I had a lot of experience up until that point, meditating, prayer, had witnessed all kinds of what I called quasi-miraculous experiences, especially as an athlete, being in the zone, and you know, it's now called flow state. So I put it out there to have a career change for something that
would have an impact on people immediately, transformative, and ended up getting this random email about a former stuntman who shattered his leg like Humpty Dumpty. And with the use of this space age technology, regenerated a leg that needed a complete knee replacement, which he forgone, and ended up doing his first triathlon a year later, or a year and a half later, from the dated injury, and done like 30 ever since. And it was kind of like my version of Wim Hof, 15 years earlier. And I was like, holy crap, like, is this true? I was like really skeptical because I studied sports medicine. I considered becoming a medical doctor. I decided, okay, maybe I'll try physical therapy. I volunteered from that. I didn't like that because it was a little bit depressing seeing like people suffering. So super skeptic. I started doing my research. I ended up on a teleconference call that was recorded due to the time zone differences. But essentially, I listened to John Thorpe tell his story, and he talked about using this technology. Talked about electrotherapy, the history of it. Most people are aware of like muscle stimulators and physical therapy, chiropractic offices. And he said this was different because it wasn't creating contractions in the muscles. So it was on a level so low that like you would barely feel it. And I was like, well, how would that even work? So essentially, by the end of that teleconference call, he got to a place that Wim said himself that they'll have to rewrite the physiology textbooks based on what he understands is possible with the human body from his own personal experience. So John Thorpe said the same thing. He said they're going to have to change the title from cellular physiology to cellular physiology. And I was like, whoa, man. I was like, he's speaking my language, because again, I had these quasi-miracle experiences where like I was like, what was happening there? Like how did everything go in slow motion like the Matrix? Like how did I do that move in ice hockey where I wound up for a slap shot in center ice and blasted the puck right through a tiny hole above the goalie's shoulder and roofed to score the goal, and the water bottle flies off the net, and it felt effortless, So I heard the teleconference call. I was like, wow, I think this is the answer to my prayer. So I call up the institute, and I get this guy on the phone, and I thought I was talking to a technician, and it turned out to be John Thorpe. It was like 40 minutes in the call, and he goes, Tony, where are you calling from? And I said, Guam. He said, what the hell are you doing out in Guam, man? You a surfer or something? And I was like, yeah, I surf, but the reef's too shallow. And he's like, by the way, you're talking to John Thorpe. I was like, John, the real John, yeah. And I was like, is it really true, John? He's like, yeah, it's true. And I said, well, I'm coming out to California, moving back from Guam. I'd love to see you. And he said, okay, well, here's my personal cell phone number. When you come out, I was like, I want to try the machine. I want to see your knee. And he's like, yeah, just give me a call. So fast forward, I leave Guam. I go visit my sister in Maui. She's living in Hawaii at the time. My mom flies out from California. We have our first ever vacation together ever. And, because she was a single mom, that we never had that. So while I was in Guam, I essentially in Maui, I did my research because I knew that John had clinics in Hawaii. And, my sister comes in the room and gives me this book by, sort of the author, the precursor to The Secret, but Dr. Wayne Dyer. And in the book, it talks about the power of intention. And he talks about how the future of medicine was moving towards energy medicine, which was more on par with things like Reiki, that kind of energy versus electricity. but it was still like a clue to me, like a cookie crumb from the universe. And then I called up an old friend of mine who was a massage therapist at the Grand Wailea Hotel, which is 7-star, top of the line resort. And she was a massage therapist there, and I asked her, I said, "Hey Deborah, do you ever hear a guy named John Thorpe?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I used to work for him." And I was like, "What, with the machine?" And she's like, "Yep, with the machines." Whoa. And then I said, "Does it work?" And she's like, "Yeah, it works, it's amazing." And I was like, wow. So after we hung out, I immediately called up John on his private phone and I said, "Hey John, coming out to California, when can I see you?" And he says, "Where are you at, Tony?" And I said, "Well, where are you at?" And he says, "I'm in Napili." And I'm like, "Shut up, man, I'm in Lahaina," which were 2 neighboring towns in Maui. Wow. And he says, "Great, we'll meet for brunch tomorrow in Kanapali Village." And I was like, what the heck is going on, right? So I meet him the next morning. He's there with his fiance. I see his deformed knee, which is fully operational, has full range of motion, even though he's bone on bone, no cartilage. Whoa. And I'm like, how is this guy walking on that? You know, yet alone surfing, what's the kites, hang gliding, and skiing. And then just talking to him, I was like, yeah, I gotta do this. It's like the universe is throwing me these massive like softball pitches, right? And I'm just like, I'd be an idiot. But you know, at the time, like, this is fringe, and everybody that loves me and concerned for me, they're like, this is a scam, it's a hoax, you know. They're trying to talk me out of it, but something deep inside of me said, this is it. And the final hurdle was like coming up with the funding to actually buy this equipment. And I had never been treated with it. I just went off of faith based on what was happening, and, you know, asked my affluent clients from Guam if I could get a loan, and they were like, this is a scam, like, we never heard of this before. And eventually I just surrendered. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to come up with the money for this. But so I ended up, you know, at that time there was another precursor to The Secret. It was called What the Bleep Do We Know? And this is what made Dr. Joe Dispenza famous. You know, essentially it was just talking about like the power of the mind and our connection to the universe and that kind of thing, and how there's like science behind this and how it impacts our health, you know, with like fight or flight and being in the zone and flow. So anyways, I was sort of sharing this story of like meeting John Thorpe and like this movie What the Bleep to someone, and then someone like dear to me overheard the conversation and it was like, hey, after I had talked to that first person, came up to me and was like, hey, I believe in you, Tony, and you know, I want to sponsor you. I want to pay. And at that time it was just over $25,000. Wow. And this person said, I want to remain anonymous. You know, the only thing I ask is that if I'm ever in pain in my body, just treat me. And I was like, are you serious? And it's like, yep. And wrote the check on the spot, full amount. I sent it to John Thorpe. He called me back. He was like, Tony, how did you do that? And I was like, I don't know, man. And so that was just over 15 years ago. I ended up in the training. I never got treated. I had an old injury from like Guam, like helped coach football, and got treated on my thumb, that injury, and like the pain was gone, right? And I was like, what is this? And then I witnessed everybody, all my classmates who had aches and pains, their pains went away. And I was like, holy crap. And so John, knowing that I had flight benefits at that time, just sent me around the world. And I was like living the dream and working with this technology that is electrically based. It's called Microcurrent Therapy. Supposedly, you know, the inventor of this equipment helped develop what we know as the heart rate monitor, the EKG or the ECG in the hospitals. And they also realized, like, okay, the heart is electrical, the brain's electrical, and the nervous system, and so are the muscles. And each of those particular, like whether it's the nervous system, heart, or muscles, have their specific signature waveform that determines the electricity that's coming off of it. So the machine was developed by the same scientist and his team of researchers, and it's able to look inside the body. And the crazy thing about this story, and I can't confirm it, is this guy is totally elusive. He's kind of like Dr. No from James Bond, or Dr. Evil. At least in Dr. Evil, you can actually see his face, right? But essentially, this guy came from Czechoslovakia right before the Russian invasion in 1968, got recruited to America to work for the U.S. Military. So he helped develop the first missile guidance chip that they put in missiles that he seeks and hits his target, and supposedly put that same chip into the machine. So I don't know if that's true or not, but all I can say is that after 15 years of working with people and animals and seeing pain go away just from using a few cents of microcurrent electricity, it's what kept me in being a skeptic. And the same thing with the Wim Hof stuff, right? It was like I was a skeptic, and I'm not saying those things are all they're panaceas, because there's some things that work better than the aforementioned methods I just talked about. But in conjunction with all these other methods, which I've spent the last 20 something, I would say close to 25 years traveling the world seeking experts in their field, which I've been so blessed to meet and become friends with. I've been able to put all this together, not only with the machine, but just like healthy living, similar to what you're doing around like air, water, light, sound, EMF, and food, which I'm learning from Dr. Anthony G. Beck right now. But, so that's kind of the story, right? The machine, and just been so blessed that prayer got answered, and I got to meet all you guys, and meet everybody. I've been able to peek behind the curtains with Hollywood, with professional sports, with the animal world, people from all walks of life, including small children and babies.
It's been incredible to see, like, just to witness whenever you've worked on people, in a lot of pain, and, immediately after, like, people with leg or foot injuries and like able to walk again. And it's one of those things that you almost have to experience it to really understand. Similar to breath work in a way, or like the cold water, somebody who hasn't been in the cold before, you just can't really explain it. You just have to do it to know. And I feel like the machine is one of those things as well. I'm so glad that like you shared the full story behind it, because there's so much value in that alone. Like, all the best things in my life happened whenever like my intuition said like, do this next thing, and then the next thing appeared, and then the next thing appeared. But you could never know what the next thing was going to be if you didn't have the faith to follow the first thing. And like, if someone listening to this podcast takes nothing else away at all, like, that's the one thing that I would really hope gets through. Like, if you feel intuitively called to do something off the back of this podcast or not, or you like, see something online and it feels like, oh, that really feels intuitively like I should do that, or I should investigate that, at least follow it and check it out. And it could lead you to moving to Northern Ireland eventually.
Yeah, getting married.
Yeah, right.
You being my best man.
Who knows? I'm game for being other people's best man as well. So yeah, that's just such an amazing story. And if anyone did want to get in touch with you, if they are, I mean, what sort of conditions do you sort of feel that can stand to benefit the most from working with the machine, and how is the best way for people to get in touch?
Yeah, so essentially any kind of pain condition is really great for with the machine. So joint pains, just essentially like whether it's chronic or acute, right? I mean, you have somebody that just sprains their ankle or breaks a bone. It's amazing for, just setting the electrical environment up so that the body can heal itself. And that's the thing, like the body's the miracle. We just have to provide the right environment and setting for that to happen. And so a lot of it, as you said in another conversation, it's like getting that mental block out of the way as well, like psychologically, and whether it's your own like journaling and understanding, or actually going to like talk to a professional that you trust to work on your sort of psychological hitches. But yeah, essentially that I would say the machine is the best in regards to pain. Now with actual performance, to be able to get out of fight or flight and the jungle monkey mind, it's another benefit. Just getting your electrical environment sort of tuned, so again your brain waves, your heart waves, and your muscle waves to all sync up. And then that's when you see the transformation, similar to when you get people in the ice bath and they're sort of like almost hyperventilating, and then they get their breath under control, and then you see that their eyes come online, and then like the mask, the facade like comes off, and then that's the true authentic person that's shining forth. So it's the same with the machine, just being able to get people to be in touch with themselves. And a lot of it is just getting the static and noise out of the system, so you're just pure signal. So that's so beautiful. And then you can get into like the performance side of things, so you can sort of rehearse visualization, or I like the word visceralization. So
that's good.
It's not just the mental, but you're actually like feeling it in your body. And so there's that the machine has benefits for. And then just like sleep on steroids, meditation on steroids. So that's the performance side. To reframe like some of your old programmings, you can kind of scan your mental space and go like, hey, that old program doesn't work for me anymore, and or this is like a shift in perspective and your paradigms. Like, a lot of people when they face fears, and this is how I met my wife, right? Is like we always say like, what's the worst that can happen? And well, subconsciously you're telling yourself death, or like at least embarrassment. But why not frame it and say, what's the best that can happen? And then that kind of has your brain looking for sort of synchronicities and clues and signs to follow, down the rabbit hole and go onto an adventure where you come out of it and you're like, wow, I'm so glad I listened to that, and I've grown and transformed as a result. So that's kind of what the machine does. And it just, again, it's not the machine, it's the person, it's their own body. That we're just creating the environment so that the body can heal itself, and then it can reach these sort of peak performance states. And hopefully it becomes like a permanent stage. I like the term like altered states, become permanent stages, you know. And people can reach me currently on Instagram at TONEFLOREAL. And that's the best place. I'm building up a new website and all that stuff. But yeah, that's the best place. Or you can email me at TONEFLOREAL@gmail.com.
That's awesome, Tony. There's a few things that I wanted to touch on there. Like, I'd asked about people who might have a health condition that want improved, but you're totally right. Like, that's only half of the people that could benefit, like, from in terms of performance. I know you've had regular clients who were performing in the NFL in America and the UFC, and like literally the highest level athletes in the world that Tony's worked with, and people in Northern Ireland have the opportunity to work with you now, which is incredible. I really hope if anyone's listening to this that they check out Tony on Instagram, hit him a DM or send him an email. And really, it's about a lot more than the machine. Tony's just an awesome human, and apart from anything, you'll get as much from the conversation as the experience itself, like as the experience of the machine. Tony, like you'd mentioned, has a background in sports science and physiology, and yeah, it just goes so much deeper than the machine. And getting the body into the right state to let it do all the healing, because you're totally right, that's another massive thing that somebody could take from listening into this, that it's really just all about getting the body right to do the magic, that it's not the external thing is the magic thing, it's you are the magic thing. And maybe some people or some tools can help set you up to do your own inner miracle.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just a machine, but it's a lot of people want the quick thing, the quick fix, or the quick pill, or a lot of the things that are worth it in life actually take some effort, take some time and work. And you know, that was the mistake when I entered flow state. I thought, oh, you could just be in a permanent effortless state forever. But I forgot that, you know, the first part of effortless was effort, you know. So I went around, you know, super new agey. I mean, I checked everything in the world, you know, from, you name it, new age to spirituality, church, science to psychedelics. I mean, I just wanted to see what all these people were talking about. And essentially, you know, I got back to full circle where, you know, a lot of things is just knowing where you want to go, is having that clarity, and then actually putting forth the effort to doing it, and then basically checking your attitude and putting back your best effort, doing your best, and then just surrendering the rest. And then that surrendering part, when you do those first part of the formula, that's when magic unfolds. And I'm not, you know, totally like discrediting, like life does happen and sad things happen and accidents happen, but it sets you up, in my opinion. Let my life be the evidence. You can look at it on Instagram. You know, I always say the proof is in the pudding. Like, if what I say, it doesn't matter what I said, especially on this podcast. Like, let me like show you, let me like, you know, actually do a demo with the machine on you and give you the experience, because the rest of it is just like talk, right? So the same with your life. If you want to have something, like, you got to be able to move in that direction. And personally, I found that I can't move forward until I go within myself first. And once I'm in myself and like everything's sort of clear, then I just see myself, things magically unfolding. And a lot of times going within yourself means actually going out. So it's kind of a weird paradox, but you can't also wait for things to be perfect to be able to move in the direction you feel is right, because a lot of times it does. My favorite word is courage. in Latin means to come from the heart. So if you lead from your heart forward into something that scares the crap out of you, that you know deep down that's the direction you want to go, trust me, it's gonna be worth it. Like even if it's so hard, you know, you just take that little micro step and then watch things just unfold. You know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, there was like big dragons sit on the best gold.
Yeah, I like that.
Something that like
let's go hunt some dragons.
Yeah. On that note, if anyone does want to go dragon slaying with Tony or myself, again, hit Tony up on Instagram, Tony Floreal, TonyFloreal. You can follow me on Instagram, Causeway Living, and if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already are. So I'll see you on Instagram. And yeah, thanks, Tony. I think this was a fun first episode of the Causeway Living podcast, a good pilot. And if you enjoy this episode, make sure to hit me up and let me know. And we'll do more of these. We'll definitely have Tony back on soon, because I already can think of about 5 or 6 stories that we didn't even get into today.
Oh man,
going through the window, fighting the demons.
Oh my gosh, right? I always forget those stories too, man. Yeah.
Mexican demons, garbanzo bean
gonzo juice.
Yeah, right. I mean, we didn't even get into the Tony water or anything. So
oh man,
yeah, so much to go on. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thank you again, Tony.
My pleasure. Can't wait to do this again.
We're gonna do it again.
Can't wait to have you on my show again too.
Oh snap.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, peace out.
Peace.
Nice. That was awesome, bro.